At the inner athlete, our endeavor has always been to basically cater to three major segments. One is the entrepreneur in sport, one is the recreational athlete, and third is the aspiring sports management professional and sports management institutes. And sometimes when we research our projects, as they say in cricket, we hit the sweet spot. Today, we've hit the sweet spot with what I'm trying to discuss with you. Today, I've picked up a sport from the field of competitive fitness. I'll explain what competitive fitness is. And this sport is a sport of Hyrox, developed by two German sports athletes, Christian Totzke and Moritz, legendary hockey player. If you followed hockey, he's been part of also the India Hockey League. He's been part of two Olympic gold campaigns for Germany. And these guys developed this fitness competitive sport called Hyrox. So before I tell you what Hyrox is, let me tell you what competitive fitness sport is. And I think since time memorial, mankind must have indulged in competitive fitness sports. If you see the kind of equipments that they use, the spear, the stones, the mace, everything has been used in a sport format. And if you analyze, let me give you three examples. First, let me give you the example of marathons. What is marathon? Where does it originate from? People must have been using the long distance running format basically as an endurance exercise. So somebody came with the ingenious idea of creating a competition out of it, and that became the marathon. You must have seen these strongman competitions. This basically originated in Scotland, in England. Basically, the developer was again an Olympic gold medalist in the field of javelin and discus throw, Edmund. And what he developed was basically these strongman games. You must have seen people trucks, pick up these huge stones, and a very competitive format of sport. So similarly, another sport which will even, give you more resonance is what you see in the gyms nowadays, in our gyms. And that is the sport of CrossFit. CrossFit is another sport which basically is also, which takes a fitness product like bodybuilding or weight training and has created a competition out of it. Hyrox is something similar. What these two German athletes have done is they've basically brought more of an endurance focus into this and have developed a sport which has become a huge success. How did they arrive at the name Hyrox? Well, they came with the name Hyrox is because high means hybrid. Hybrid means a hybrid between functional training and endurance. And basically rocks means rock star. And oh boy, it's been a rock star, let me tell you. Today it has a turnover of over $140 million. It's, the competitions take place in over 23 countries, including India. India has had 3 centers in Mumbai, Bangalore, and Delhi. And 26 is going to have, this future editions of this competition. And let's now understand what Hyrox is. So what is Hyrox? Well, let's explain to you what the sport is. So basically, Hyrox is basically organized in an internal facility, either an internal stadium or a mall or something where, everything is enclosed. And it basically involves 8 1-kilometer runs interspread with one functional training activity that you do on a workstation. So let me explain to you how it is. So there is a workstation called the skiers machine. So you do the skiers machine for 1,000 meters. As soon as you do the skiers, then you run a kilometer. After you run the kilometer, you go on to the next workstation. That next workstation could be, a farmer's carry where you're basically holding 2 kettlebells of 20 kilos each and walking. After that, you again do a 1 kilometer run, and then you may be doing a sandbag lunge, followed by another kilometer run. So similarly, there are 8 runs followed by 1 functional training. And then every athlete who performs in this is timed. And that's how the competition takes place. Now, you would ask, how is it different from CrossFit? And that's where I think the founders have been very smart in what they did. What they did was they basically picked up endurance exercises and simple functional exercises as compared to CrossFit, which basically involves complex Olympic exercises. And that's where the difference lies. I think Hyrox can be scaled further because it is more accessible to the recreational athlete. Now, when we speak about these competitive fitness products, and it's just my personal caution for all of you who'd want to, play this sport, is that please realize that this is a sport and it is not a pure exercise form. And therefore, whenever you participate in any sport, you always are prone to injury. Therefore, and this is for every sport in this segment of fitness competition, whether it is the marathon. A lot of people think marathons are basically, an exercise form. They are not. Well, long distance running could be an exercise form, but when you indulge in marathon, that's a sport and that can cause injury. So it's all about being aware, invest, like we always say, invest in a good orthopedic, invest in a good fitness trainer, invest in a good physiotherapist, and then scale up your exercises so that you become a competent Hyrox athlete. Now that we've understood what the sport of Hyrox is, let's try and understand what business opportunities can arise from a sport like this. So first, let me take the reality sector. If you see, India is changing in terms of its reality landscape. Earlier we used to have independent buildings, we used to have independent bungalows, and those are soon changing into gated colonies with amenities, sports amenities, gyms. Now just imagine if Hyrox collaborates with the reality sector with one of the builders and introduces the sport of Hyrox to its residents. Then, this builder can provide a sporting facility to his or her residents, at probably a fraction of the cost that it would take him to build up a gym setup. Now, this is where, more research is needed and more in-depth analysis is needed from both people, from Hyrox to tap into the potential of this business, and for people like the reality sector where they can cut down the costs on amenities. This was one example. Second example is when you create these facilities, India has got some fantastic companies like Khelmore, run by the brilliant Jatin Paranjpe, a former cricketer. Now, what Khelmore does is it basically taps into the potential of sporting facilities. It basically brings sports aspirants, recreational athletes, and provides them with facilities. So basically, somebody is looking out, wanting to play badminton, somebody wants to play cricket. Khelmore is a platform you go on to, and they will help you identify a facility. Now, imagine if Khelmore taps into CrossFit and Hyrox facilities. Then you take this forward. The number of participants for your product will keep growing. It will help both Khelmore as an aggregator of sports facilities, and it will help an organization like Hyrox to basically, tap the full potential of the facilities that it develops for its competitions. Another favorite company of mine is Reliance, and Reliance invests hugely into sport. Now, look at what Reliance is doing nowadays. So in the part of their CSR activity also, in especially the city of Mumbai, they are building these open spaces on the newly laid coastal roads. Now imagine a Hyrox facility on these roads. So unlike a gym, this would not be obtrusive. It would not, create a structure on what is supposed to be an open space. And Hyrox facility can be, easily assimilated into those open spaces. And, the number of people then, who would want to actually get into the sport of Hyrox, the participants, is going to go up exponentially. How does this help Reliance? Well, it also helps Reliance because if Reliance also has a retail arm, and if, all this, the functional stations, as we discussed in the chapter where we were discussing what Hyrox is. Basically, if you see, the rowing machines, the skiers, All these can basically be a business opportunity for the Reliance retail arms. It's a win-win business situation. So just see how the ecosystem evolves when you try and tap into the potential, the business potential for a sport. Remember at the start, I said, sometimes when we research, we find projects which basically assimilate so well with what our ethos is. Our ethos was basically to encompass, to provide some kind of value to three major constituents of sport. That is the investor of sport, the recreational athlete, and the area which I'm most passionate about. That is this education of sport and the aspiring new sports managers. And let's see what this product, Hyrox, can do for the budding sports entrepreneur. Now, there are two ways to look at it. Basically, if you take the sport of Hyrox, it will just create so many opportunities. You could get into facility management, event management of this sport. And if this sport picks up, it will generate so much of employment. But, at the inner athlete, we always say that don't be a job seeker. Try and see if you can be an entrepreneur. Try and see if you can do some kind of research, if you're a sports management institute. And that's where, in fact, today when I was, planning to start with this, the video, and I walked in with a mudgar, and my production head thought I've lost it. And I exactly explained to him as to why I carried the mudgar. So this is how I want you to see this. How did Hyrox develop? Two athletes, they came together, they took the endurance sport of running, and then they took all these functional exercises and created the sport. Now, what I propose is, put some thought to this, put some research into it. Go out there, look at our akhadas. If you see our akhadas, they have certain equipments. They have a rope. They have, you do something called the dunds, the baituks. They have something called a weighted ring. They have something called the mudgars. They have something called the mazes. But can you create a functional and an endurance sport out of this? It will be done at probably 1/20th the cost of what Hyrox is, because after all, realize that Hyrox is a sport that is developed in Europe, in rich Europe, So at 1/4 of the cost, you can create I'm not saying copy, but what you're trying to do here is getting inspired by, a functional competition and trying to create your own functional competition. I think this is a fascinating area which sports management colleges should use as part of their research, and sports management students should use as trying to become entrepreneurs in this line. So as we conclude this fascinating subject of Hyrox, a few thoughts came across my mind. What Christian and Moritz did with, as elite sportsmen, did with Hyrox. Similarly, is there somebody in India who can do something in the field of, competitive fitness, and who is a right match for this? And I think two names that come to my mind, and if you followed cricket in India, you'll know this, is Virat Kohli and his legendary trainer Basu, who was with the Indian cricket team and who transformed the fitness of the Indian cricket players. Well, this is the whole purpose of our content and the ethos of our channel. We want, to germinate these ideas, which may eventually go on to become the next Hyroxes and the next sporting trends across the globe. So as I conclude, I hope this has been an interesting topic for you. We look forward to bringing more such topics to you. And if you like this, then please, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and share this so that, we are also encouraged to bring more such content to you. Thank you.